Joseph Kahn, who we hung out with at San Diego Comic-Con. He was on our Indie Filmmaker Survival Guide panel, which you can see on the channel here. Make sure you watch that panel, which was great. Alan was on the panel.
Mm-hmm.
A last minute
minute
addition. But Joseph wrote a guest op-ed for the Hollywood Reporter called Bring Back the Hollywood Asshole. And this story is a mic drop. Effectively, you've got notes, right, Alan? Yeah. But before you do that, this is something Hollywood needs to hear. It's the reason why Spider-Man Brand New Day is not a better movie, because there was not an a-hole there to say, hey, don't do that. Hey, cut that out. No, we're not going to have that scene with this. You've got a bunch of people, you've got this sort of consensus weighing everyone's opinion, and not someone just say, nah, we're not doing that. And my experience of people in Hollywood is they care more about how others perceive them and how they look to others rather than actually doing the work, which is you got to make a great movie that makes a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And you've got to make a movie that entertains, and you got to cut the fat. Anyways, I'm sorry. I'm get to what you've got notes for the story, Alan. Give it to me.
Okay, so this is from the voice of Joseph Kahn. Hollywood lost its way when studio executives stopped thinking like business people and started thinking like artists. Reflecting on my meetings with modern executives, I say they no longer resemble the bold, intimidating studio chiefs of the past. Instead, present themselves as casual creatives. That shift symbolizes a deeper problem. Executives are more interested in fitting in with the artists than doing the job of making profitable movies. The industry's priorities changed dramatically after COVID accelerated the shift to streaming. With success measured by subscriber growth and engagement instead of box office receipts, studios became less focused on making blockbuster hits and more concerned with satisfying algorithms, investors, and cultural trends. This gave rise to the executive artists, leaders who greenlit projects based on personal values, social messaging, rather than broad audience appeal. I cite Marvel's recent struggle as evidence, the audience that rejected this approach. Hollywood needs to abandon the executive artist mindset and return to executives who prioritize commercial success above all else. Rather than trying to be creators themselves, studio leaders should focus on making movies that audiences actually want to see, embracing the profit-driven mentality that once made Hollywood and franchises like Marvel enormously successful.
Yeah, I mean, having spent time with Joseph, we've interviewed him a couple times. We hung out with him at Comic-Con and we're on that panel. He's not politically one way or another. He's just like, you just gotta, what does the audience want? They don't want all this nonsense. They do not want it. And you need someone to be kind of an a-hole to, make decisions that may not be popular in the room, but when the movie finally comes out, it won't be a compromised mess, which I will say that the failings of Spider-Man Brand New Day are specifically because no one wanted to be an asshole and said, cut that character, cut that unnecessary scene, cut that line, focus this film on one thing. And so this is why so many movies are 220 or 2.5 hours, because no one wanted to be an a-hole and say, cut that unnecessary character. Alan, your thoughts on this?
I mentioned this a long time ago, but what is the difference between Walt Disney and Bob Iger? The difference is Walt Disney struggled his entire career as the president and CEO of Disney. He was constantly facing bankruptcy from one movie to the next. He understood that if he put out a bad movie, he was in serious financial trouble. And the studio almost went bankrupt several times. because he didn't make the right decision and the movie failed. The problem with Bob Iger is he has too much money to fail. He's too big to fail. And so the idea of losing $100 million, losing $500 million, not a big deal. And that's the big reason that's the point, is that they are not motivated by success anymore. They're motivated by not being controversial, which is why you had all these studios started putting out, the DEI stuff, because people will accept it, or it's worth the investment, or it's worth the loss. To Joseph's point, he's absolutely spot on. You need to be motivated by profit to make great stuff. I'll make one final example. This was Michael Eisner. If you read his book, he took over Paramount. He became its CEO and realized we need to make movies that people want to see. And so they just had a board meeting. What are people interested in? And they started brainstorming, putting up, Cop, in Beverly Hills. Beverly Hills Cop comes out of it. And then he brought that mentality with him to Disney and revolutionized the animation department. The animation renaissance came from Michael Eisner when he took over Disney. Where are these people again? Now it just feels like CEOs, all of them, are protecting their stock prices, their stock values, rather than doing what they're meant to do, and that's entertain the masses, the people who spend the money to watch these movies. So what the hell happened, Christopher Nolan?